Hi there. Um, this video is meant to be part of an ongoing discussion added to my first video on the tools that I said you must have absolutely. It was a sarcastic video in the sense that the title is sarcastic about you gotta have this and you gotta have that, because I see so much of that and it drives me crazy. You gotta have this and you gotta have that. You know, a guy will come out and he says, to get started, and he sets a $900 router down, best tool router or some such thing. It just blows my mind. So this, I did a video, the tools you absolutely must have. This is, if you see in the description, I say that's meant to be part of an overall framework of videos, ongoing discussion. Until the day I die, I'll be talking about tools and woodworking probably. And so this is part 2 of this tools you must have kind of discussion, okay? Now, any project has 6 layers to it. In my downtime, I will carve spoons. And I try to sell them for $8, $10. Does it pay for my time? Not totally, but does it keep downtime from being total loss? Absolutely. You could do that with ballpoint pens or whatever. So, you know, if I come across some firewood that's nice looking wood, I got a tree that we cut down. I did some walnut and cherry and maple spoons that I cut down on a project with the owner, and he gave me a bunch of that wood, and I burned some of it and I made some nice spoons out of it. So, you know, I think I made 80 or 90 spoons out of that wood. I still have that wood. Still using it. So, anyway, you take a spoon or this little tote box. No matter what the project is, this bench. In my estimation, I have a model for this kind of work. And I'll kind of include carpentry in this too, but we're talking, I have a woodworking channel, so I tend toward 2 guys. This beginning woodworker that's trying to get along on meager means, that's my passion. My other passion is I never want to forget about the little commercial guy, the guy that's trying to scratch out a buck and make a partial living or living from this craft. He's so into it. And I always have that guy in the back of my mind, this the commercial guy, the business guy, the small business guy. And it seems to me, under my model and my mindset, there's 6 layers to this work that you can't escape. And I wrote it down just so I can rattle them off for you. Every project, including this spoon, has design. It's the foundation or the umbrella over all of it. It's imbued in all of it. It's a drop of ink in a jar of water, and it permeates everything about what you do is your design. So that's number 1. Number 2 is measuring, marking, and layout. You can't escape those tasks no matter what kind of woodworker you are. Power tool, hand tool, I don't care. You've got to do it. And to the extent that you avoid those, your work diminishes. And to the extent that you're careful with measuring, marking, and layout, your work will improve instantly. Especially if you were, as I used to be, a total machine woodworker and tried to skip through a lot of that. And my work showed it. It suffered from that. Going back to hand tools more and more, and I'm still a hybrid shop, but I mean going back so much into hand work has improved my work so much and made my pieces better and more valuable. And I keep pushing for that. And there's that tug of war between production and quality, and you can't escape that in life, and it happens to your own work. The 3rd layer is cut wood. Nothing happens really that takes shape until you cut something, and you have to do that. I joke with people. They say, "What would you do today, Jeff?" And I said, "Well, I cut wood." And I feel robbed if I don't cut wood every day. Nothing's happening if I'm not cutting wood. It's like being on a lawnmower and nothing's happening if you're moving around and you're not cutting. Every movement you make should be whooping that grass down from here to here. You know, nothing's happening if you're not cutting wood. so that's the way my mind works with this work. The fourth layer is joinery. You have to put things together. And in carpentry, we don't talk much about joinery. We could. It'd be more like nails and screws. It would be more of our joinery. But in woodworking, furniture making, boat building, cabinet making, we talk about joinery. And that's a layer you can't avoid. And you can do a lot of it with machines. I'm going back to handwork because it's actually more efficient for me on a non-production type, non-mass production kind of business. I actually am more efficient many times with hand tools and more precise. And I can just physically do things that I don't know how to do with machines. And I can do them with simple hand tools, simple kinds of ancient joinery. 5, you have assembly and clamping. And 6, you have finishing and embellishments of various kinds. It might be carvings and other things. So, staining, finishing, painting, coatings, oiling, hand rubbing, all these things, and even the preparation, surface preparation is in that finishing category, where you do more planing, or you do scraping and sanding, and then you go into your finished process. But you also have embellishments like moldings and carvings and other things you add, glass and other things that are part of the project. So those 6 layers, I don't see how you could avoid that. I'd like to see another model that's taken it from a different direction, because I don't know any other way to approach the craft but these layers. Now, every one of these layers necessitates tools. And I jumped in at layer 2, measuring, marking, and layout, because no matter who you are, you're going to need some of those tools. But then once you get into the arena, you can't just follow these layers as to then what you buy. And you can't wait to get to number 5, buy clamps, or you'll never get off the ground with anything. So you have to then start with design, and then measure, mark, and layout, and then move into task-orientated tool necessities. In other words, your task necessitates the acquisition of tools, the task at hand. And that's why I said you can't do everything, and you set your sights on what you want, what mountains you want to climb, and what projects you want to tackle. And there's certain things that I keep thinking of the beginner, and I keep thinking of what even people that aren't beginners that haven't really addressed. And is you can't avoid. You need, I think, several things. I think you need a set of sawhorses. You should make your own sawhorses right off the bat. I think you should make a workbench, a modest, low-price workbench, because I guarantee you'll change, and you'll make another one, and probably another one. So start off the best you can, go in a good direction, but keep the cost down purposely, knowing it's possibly a prototype, and hopefully the vice hardware you buy, then you take that off and adapt it to a new bench. And I think you need something to tote tools around, box and that kind of thing. So those are projects right off the bat you're going to strive to have, and probably some bench aids. Some little things. You take your scraps and you make bench hooks, and you make clamping devices, and you make aids at the bench. Very valuable things. A saw vise to hold a hand saw if you want to get into sharpening a hand saw. So those are projects that you get right off the bat, and you head into those things. It may be different for you. You may have a home improvement project. You may have a piece of furniture you're trying to build. You may have, if you were an apartment dweller and you move into a house, it seems like you need everything. In our typical American scenario, it feels like you have nothing, and all of a sudden you need everything. And you can't run out and buy everything sometimes. And sometimes you're looking at the hobby aspect of it. You're looking at accomplishing the acquisition of a home item, improvement to your house. So you have specific tasks. You have to think about what those tasks would require for tools. And I got to adding up, what assortment of tools could you have that would just do an amazing array of projects? And could that list be under $1,000? And I think so. In fact, I came up with about $800 in stuff. And some of that $1,000 was my goal, included the cost of making the bench with the materials. But certainly if you take the bench and the few little projects out of it, you're going to have about $350 to make a tool tote, some horses, and a decent bench. I have maybe $325 in this whole bench with the vices. But let's say you skip the tail vise, it's a $100 item. An Eclipse quick release vise. Let's say you skip that. Because a metal vise is easily $200 right off the bat if you want. But that Eclipse I had $100 in it with free shipping. Let's say you just do the face vise. And you got a face vise like this, and it's an old-fashioned leg vise. You put a big bench screw like I did, $80 bench screw. If you had that, and maybe you add some holdfasts like this, $44 for the set of 2, and they're immensely useful to me. So I use them, but you wouldn't have to have them. You could do some things with clamping. But so you got to buy something. But if you had the bench screw to make the face vise, the lumber and the bench and the hardware, I know you can make this bench for $250. It easily can make this bench, and others like it. And then you have $20 or $30 in lumber for good sawhorses. And sometime I'll do a more in-depth look at sawhorses and options you can do. And I had a system. I won't go into it now, but I had a system that I got. I borrowed the idea from someone, and it was fantastic, and it accomplished both your horses and your bench. And it worked well for me in a long time, and I could set up and work that way today. This is better, but that other way worked good. This is better because of pursuing a hand tool approach. But the other way worked good, pretty good for hand tools, and super for power tools. It was horses and box beams. But anyway, I'll skip that for now. But anyhow, so if you look at these first few projects that I'm highly suggesting you get into, and by the way, a mallet, making a mallet ought to be a top priority. Making a marking gauge ought to be a priority. I had a marking gauge in the first video as part of the tools you buy, and I'm thinking you could do that list that I had in there for under $150. So what would your next round of tool buying be if you oriented it towards specific projects? Because we can't wait to get the layer 5 and buy clamps. We've got to have some clamps now. So that kind of mentality. Well, I added up $400 in tools. So if your first layer with the measuring and marking I said was $125 to $150, now we're up to another $400, $425, so now we're up to $550 or so. We're still well under that $1,000. And in that second layer, this phase 2 of tool buying, here's what I listed. A hammer. I'm still assuming there's people that don't have a hammer. Is there somebody in America that doesn't own a hammer? Maybe. So I don't know. There's a lot of hammers I could show you. They're good hammers for $10. So I have a hammer. I have a 10-inch saw on the list. Extra slim taper file, you could sharpen this saw. I have a circular saw on the list. I allotted $100. And I could talk to you a lot about circular saws. One of the best circular saws I ever had, and they're still made, and I would recommend this saw, is a Makita 5007. $99, great saw. You will not be disappointed with that saw. And I think I'm qualified to say, because I added up from 1986 till now 15 circular saws that I have bought and owned. I carry a DeWalt in the truck, love it. It's lightweight DeWalt, 7 1/4, good saw. The Makita I had pooped out. It still runs good. It just needs a new battery. New cord, and I gave it to my father-in-law. They'll fix it. But that's all, since '88 or '86. The 15 saws I've had, I've tried the worm drives. I've tried all of them, and wore out a few different saws. Some of them I traded and didn't like, but 15 saws. And I'm telling you, that Makita 7 1/4 or a good DeWalt, The Milwaukee saw is a nice saw. I have one here that I like. Comes with a case. I don't use cases, but it comes with one. And I have a circular saw though on the list. You need a blade. Buy the Freud Diablo blades, the red ones. They're just the best there is. I think I've tried all the blades out there. I have on my list not a number 4 hand plane first. I say first buy a number 5. Buy a jack plane. Because then you can flatten a little better than you can with a 4. So you can joint lumber, you can flatten a bench top adequately with a number 5 plane. You can still do some detail work. I say start with a number 5. And if you look at eBay, number 4 planes go for ridiculous, in nice shape, they go for ridiculous prices. And it's odd how the 5s go cheaper and are less sought after than the 4s. So if you can get a good 4, great. If you can get both, great. But if you can only get one, start with a jack plane. Start with a number 5. And then you're going to be scheming to get a number 4, and I'm addicted to a block plane, so I want a block plane. But just for now on this list, get a jack plane. I'm suggesting an eBay plane, but you may be able to get a new one. But in my budget scheme here, I've allotted $40 to $50, and you should be able to accomplish that. I think you can. I got this for, I think, $50. It might have been lower than that. It might have been closer to 40, and I think I had closer to 60 in this. I remember in the 2 different sellers, but I bought them both on eBay at the same time, $100. And then I restored them. They were clean though, and I knew what I was looking at, and the picture was probably pretty good. Minimal restoration effort, and bam, I had 2 Miller's Falls planes for $100. So that's kind of the thing you're after, if you can pull that off. Then, next on my list, if you don't have a set of screwdrivers, you're going to need some screwdrivers. You can get a good set for $30 or $40, pretty darn good screwdrivers. If you're really strapped, get something. Get an 11-in-1 screwdriver, 8-in-1, 6-in-1 screwdriver for $8. Get a good one. Then next on my list, I have a battery drill, but I've only allotted $99. So that just is going to get you a drill and 2 batteries in a decent brand name, 18 volt. It's not going to get you the impact. I'm not a huge advocate of impacts in a lot of cases. I would rather just use the drill, but the impacts are nice if you're driving lots of big screws in an outdoor project or a bigger project. Maybe the bench project, you might use it on 3-inch screws. But in my budget for this scheme right at the moment, $99 gets you a decent enough drill to get going. They don't last forever. I added up from 86 to now 15 circular saws, and then I added up from 88. This is the first I ever bought a battery drill. And I don't remember a whole lot about them prior to 88. They were kind of an exotic tool. Not anybody had them. Nobody had them. They probably existed back in 85, 84 maybe. But I just don't remember much till 86, 87. I bought one in 88, and since 88, I added up 26 battery drills that I've bought. I mean, it's ridiculous. They poop out, you know, and the drills, they are no good. It's the batteries and chargers that you need, and the drill's still fine. And you go buy the battery and charger, and you might as well buy the drill, because we all know this. It's the batteries and charger that poop out, and it's what costs the most. But if you get a battery drill, $99, you'll be scheming to get more batteries with just the one tool. And then you're not going anywhere without bits. So I threw in $30 to get you going with some screwdriver bits, some twist drill bits, and you need to think about the bits you need in your joinery and what you're fastening and what you're drilling and how you're using. But $30 will get you going with some bits. I have a coping saw down on the list. There's 2 cheapies on the market I like. The Irwin's a good saw. I have no problems with it. I like the saw. I can vouch for the Cobalt. I have 3 of these, I think. 3 or 4 of them, and they're solid little coping saw for well under $10. Either one's under $10. This is 9 something. This is $7.99, I think, or $8.99, and this is a good tool. And they'll get the job done. Chisels are next on the list. I'm planning a review on these. I gave first impressions on these chisels. I would like to be able to review them at some point, and I'd like to be able to say something really good about them. Unfortunately, at this time, I can't recommend those, and I don't think they're serious furniture and cabinet making chisels because they're too short. But I've allotted $30, so what are you going to get for $30? I'm going to suggest you get the 4-piece set of the Marples Cheapies, the Chinese chisels. They've really done well for me. They take a good edge. They hold the edge. They don't fold. The edge doesn't fold. They have a lot of length to them, much more like a furniture guy is going to want, and a nice healthy handle. And you can hit them with a mallet that you're going to make. And you can hit them in the meantime with the side of a hammer, or get yourself, if you can squeeze it in the budget somehow, get yourself a nylon hammer right off the bat, as I said in my mallet video. So 4-piece Marple set is your chisels, and you're going to need at least 2 clamps, and I'm going to recommend my bread and butter clamp is a 24-inch lightweight clamp. I can fidget with these one-handed and work alone, and they do 90% of my clamping. Now, they don't have a lot of clamping force, so for me that's good because it makes me get my shit together nicely without a lot of hundreds of pounds of pressure. Don't use clamps to make your work fit. You know, learn to fit your work, and then the clamp doesn't need a lot of force. And I like the lightweight of them. There's lots of other choices, and if you have access to pipe, then go pipe clamps. Go 1/2-inch pipe clamps, because they are heavy and they hang off your piece and you're clamping and they're heavy. And the other ones have more, the bigger pipe has more force, but the 1/2-inch is plenty strong, and if you have access to a lot of half-inch iron pipe, then by all means. And get the Irwins, which don't need threading on either end, which is a nice thing to have. The Bessies are good clamps. The old Jorgensens and Ponies and all that, they're all good clamps, but the older ones required threading. And when you acquire scraps of pipe, a lot of times the one end is not threaded like this. This doesn't need that. You know, you can put this in and it holds it because of this. The only one I know that does that. And I love that because now I can take true scraps of pipe, which I used to get off the job all the time, and make my clamps. I don't need threading on either end. The old way you used to have to thread this on, and then the other one slid, and the other end didn't have to be threaded. Whatever length you had, then that's the clamp you got. But I like the Irwin clamp. I'm impressed with that thought that they did that. There's lots of choices there, so if you have access to pipe, then by all means, go pipe clamps, because you won't regret the quality and the strength of them. I'm just saying my bread and butter clamp is these little bar clamps. And man, if you could get a dozen of them, you won't regret it, because the struggle you're going to have is on the bench to glue up a laminated top. So you're going to be scheming for clamps right away to do a bench. There is other ways to design the bench in the meantime. You know, you could make do with MDF and get some of your other stuff built. But I would suggest going to laminated top. It's really the cheaper way to go and the better top. So clamps are going to be a struggle for you. But in this budget of $400, you know, if you up that $100, now you're not buying 2 clamps, you're buying 6 or 7. And that'll get you going. I think with 7 clamps, 8 clamps, you could do these slabs separately, one at a time. You can't do them together because this clamp isn't long enough, and that's hard to do. But for a beginner anyway. So clamps are always going to, all your life, you're going to be scheming to get more and more clamps. But you can't start at all without 2 or 3 clamps. To get going, build your horses, make some pieces, get started on this. It's tricky to do the bench without a bench. So that's why you need the horses. They'll get you going. If you have horses, great, that's out of the way. Take the money you just spent making horses, 20 or 25 bucks, and put it toward clamps. Take anything you can save out of this. If you want to go with a $50 circular saw and put the money into clamps, do that. It's just you're going to get the performance of a $50 saw instead of a $100 or $125 saw. We kind of know we get what we pay for in those things. If you are thinking about the power tool route versus the hand tool route, I would highly encourage you to think about hand tools. Think about having fun with it. You know, people say, well, I just do this for fun. Well, then have fun with it. You know, I'm telling you, hand tools are more fun. They're more enjoyable. And you get exercise, valuable exercise. And I'm going to do a video about that sometime. Why do I care about hand tool? Why am I passionate about hand tool woodworking? But my matter at hand is the sawing. If you wanted to eliminate the circular saw altogether so you can have clamps, you can make this bench. I kid you not, I'm sure you could take a $13 10-point saw, throwaway, and make this bench. And you've already got this other saw too in that list. So you can do joinery. You don't have to do the joinery with this. But clamps are going to be an issue for you. So you could skip the circular saw, actually, and get these projects done. You can make your horses. You can make the bench with a handsaw. What you're going to need to do, if you really are intrigued by the hand tool route, what you're really going to need to do is be looking all the time eBay and buy yourself a good classic saw that you can sharpen. Get a Diston. I like Sandvik. I look for Sandviks. Get you a Sandvik. Another great one that's a better price is the Craftsman saws you'll see from the 80s and 90s that are sharpenable. They actually were probably made by Warranted Superior, so look up Warranted Superior or Craftsman. And then the two others would be Sandvik and Diston. And then any of the English saws that I know of are probably pretty good saws. What you're looking for, though, is a straight plate. You get a bent plate and you're buying problems. Just about anything else you can fix. If there's a lot of missing teeth, that's a problem. And they'll usually say in an eBay description, no missing teeth, saw plate is straight. Look for that. You'll be fine, and if you could catch one of these for $30 or $40, you're in good shape. I got these for under $30 with shipping in the deal. And they'll outlast me in my lifetime. And then you can sharpen if you want to get into that path. And I highly encourage you to rethink that if you've automatically assumed power tool. Don't assume that, because you will be cheating yourself out of a lot of skills that you could be acquiring by using hand tools. There's other kinds of hand saws. There's lots of ways, but I'm just throwing this out as a way to get going and food for thought. We'll keep talking about tools. I'm constantly worried about value. I'm cheap to a fault. You know, one of my passions is to find stuff that the average Joe can buy, and he's not sorry he bought it. You know, he gets something for his money. You know, so I'm looking at high value things all the time. Not just for me, but for helping others too. And I need it. My costs all my life trying to work. Of course, my battery died, so I had to piece this back together. But I was trying to say my costs will run away with any businessman, anybody, no matter how small, how podunk he is, how big he is. Cost is always something you have to control, and cost will run away with you. And as a one horse show here, even at my tiny scale, costs go crazy. You're just spending. You can't ignore it. And so I'm always thinking about, austerity and, what pays and what doesn't. And then I look at the hobbyist and I'm thinking, my gosh, these guys are getting into so many costly things, and is it worth that? I mean, only you can answer that. What's worth it to you? But I need to finish two other items that aren't on the list, and one of them that I hadn't mentioned yet in this layer of tools is get a 4-in-1 rasp. You will not regret it. You need this tool. It's cheap, and you can't make this. I mean, it's something that will pay off to have that simple tool. Another one, if you can squeeze it in, is get a flat bottom spoke shave. And man, the work that saves you working on contours. I see people run to the drum sander, and they've got these expensive drum sanders, and you got all that paper and all those supplies you got to have, and the dust, and now you're talking safety gear and all that stuff. And they could do it so simple with a spoke shave. It just blows my mind. Simple curving items that this will run right through and shave, and you can't get a finish better than this. So it just shocks me how this is overlooked in the world of woodworking, except by hand tool guys. They're the only ones thinking about it. What else? The moment you talk about chisels and plane irons and sharpening, you're going to have something to sharpen. In the long run, if you can afford it, diamond plates will pay off and be the cheapest way you can go, and who knows how long they last, 20, 30 years. If I had started out and just bought those, I'd still be using them. And I would have saved money on other Arkansas stones and India stones and cheap diamond stones and water stones and on and on. The diamond plates would have accomplished the job the best probably there is, and the cheapest in the long run. Now, I don't know a whole lot about ceramic stones, and I don't know how long they last. I'm told they have to be flattened sometimes. I see guys flattening them, all that. And they're not cheap. So at the cost level of ceramic stones, why wouldn't you buy diamond stones? You don't have to do any of that. I have 2 water stones, and I cannot recommend them. It's fiddly. It's more for an enthusiast that's into that. They don't produce any better edge, and I know people will argue with this, but I cannot recommend them for somebody that isn't just totally into the world of sharpening. I mean, I have to keep mine wet. They're soaked all the time. If you don't, you got to soak them. They can break easy. They're soft. They have to be flattened. You really need multiple grits to get the benefits of them. They're not cheap. So, I just don't recommend the water stones, Japanese water stones. I don't like that style. You're better off, if you're on a tight shoestring budget, you're better off with a 2-sided Norton India stone, which I used for 10 years and accomplished good sharpening with a strop. You can get a very good working edge with any of your cutting tools. Plenty good for what this work needs. Another way to go that's even cheaper, $12 at Harbor Freight. I've had this for 10 years. I got a brand new one sitting over there that I'll use for another 10 or 15 years. And they're fine. They just aren't the high-grade diamonds. The grit lessens the more you use it, and they just don't last as long. But I actually use this to flatten my Arkansas stone, which dishes out. And I use this to flatten my water stones when I was using those. And it does just fine. I've done a ton of sharpening on this. And then make yourself a million strops. I mean, if you make a strop, a couple of strops, the compound's cheap. $5 you'll get compound. And that compound lasts forever, and you can get a really good edge with this. If you go a little bit more and get some diamond stones, I don't even have good diamond stones, expensive diamond stones. They're good, they just aren't, they're not big. They're 2x6 stones. These are probably made by DMT for buck knives, but I've done a ton of sharpening with these. If you could get a little bigger size, this was like $40 for the pair. in the bigger size, you're going to have 30 or 40, 50 in the one. So if you got coarse, medium, and fine, you're set up, and I'm saying 150 bucks. Make yourself your strop. You'll be set up. And in the long run, that's the cheapest way to go. And you'll never look back. You'll do good sharpening and so forth. So there's some thoughts. I'll piece this in with the first one. My battery died, and I should, say you'll be scheming for a jigsaw. We'll talk about that some more another time. That would help you a lot on curving cuts and in plywood and stuff like that. It would help you. Also, the moment we talk about power tools, you better be thinking about safety. Hand tools, it's amazing how safe they are. And other than cutting yourself with chisels, I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about with safety, with hand tools. You're never going to chop your finger off with this. You're never going to have a piece fly in your eye with a handsaw. It's just a whole other world of working. But the moment we talk about power tools, you better get some glasses. It's just an automatic. And I like the ones with cheaters because then it takes the place of my reading glasses and I can use them. Arguably, I could wear these all day long. They're not uncomfortable, but I don't need to with the hand tools. The moment I turn on a saw, you need these. And these are 20 bucks. So you got to think about safety and you got to think about what's involved. Other things come up about having if you don't have a shop vac, a wet dry vac could be your initial cleanup item. It's useful in the household and good to have, but that kind of thing comes up. Safety gear comes up. Clamps come up. I mean, you get into finishing, and a decent paintbrush is 10, 12, 14 bucks. So things come up, and you have to look at your overall picture. You got to look at your resources you have on hand, what you might borrow from mom or pop that aren't using it, or what you see in garage sales and flea markets. Harbor Freight has some hit and miss things that would be good for you. Sales, you're embarking in this material world that as well as I do. It's an ocean of things out there and a minefield in some ways. That's why my passion is to find high value items that keep you from wasting money. So that's enough for now in this second round of talking about essential tools, and I hope this is of use to somebody, and thank you for watching.